Crimson Tide fans, before we get today's video started, be sure to hit that big red button and subscribe to the best Alabama football channel on YouTube. Listen, we're giving you videos almost daily. The more subs we get, the more videos we'll put out. And the best part about it, it's absolutely free. All you have to do is hit that big red button and stay in the know on your Crimson Tide all season long, right here on the Alabama Football Report. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome into the Alabama Football Report. I am your host, RC Maxfield. Week 3 is come and gone, and we are back in the non-conference slate for your Alabama Crimson Tide as they will return back to Tuscaloosa to face off against the Golden Eagles of Southern Miss, who haven't looked too great so far this season coming into Tuscaloosa with a 1-2 record. Now, Alabama may have struggled a little bit last week against Florida, but that can be expected down in SEC play, especially in a place like the Swamp. We've talked about that, and if you haven't seen it, go check out the previous videos, us recapping that critical win for the 2021 Crimson Tide. But moving on to week 4 now, with Southern Miss coming into Tuscaloosa, this should be a blowout, right? So you probably won't be seeing this guy much. That's Bryce Young. Bryce Young obviously having a Heisman-like candidate season, in the top 2 in terms of odds right now, only behind Ole Miss's quarterback. And listen, I don't think you'll see much of him on Saturday against Southern Miss, just for the due point that it's a 45-point over-under in terms of odds right now. Alabama's the favorite, 45-point favorite in this one, and probably we'll see maybe a half of football for Bryce Young, but I don't think that's bad. We'll talk about it here in just a little bit in terms of who we might get to see at the quarterback position for Alabama when Bryce Young does leave, but expect him to put up big numbers in that first half, maybe a little bit, a couple snaps in the second half, but this should be a dominant performance for the Alabama Crimson Tide as they return back to Tuscaloosa. But who you got in week 4 for this matchup between the Golden Eagles and the Crimson Tide? Tell me down in the comments if you got Southern Miss, type USM, and I better be seeing a lot of Bamas down in the comments as, again, they are 45-point favorites right now, according to our betting partner at BetUS. Nice segue. It's called a professional segue in the business right there. Head over to chatsports.com/TideBet and use the promo code TIDE125 where you will get a 125% deposit bonus on your first deposit. All you got to do, head over to chatsports.com/TideBet. Use the promo code TIDE125, and let's say you put $100 down in your account. They'll match it and then some over on BetUS, and you'll have a grand total of $225 to play with all season long. Maybe you want some of that 45-point action that Alabama is currently projected to beat the Golden Eagles by. Here's how Alabama has fared so far throughout the season on the money line. Perfect. Spread, stay away, over, under. If you like a coin flip, go for it. But BetUS is the place to do it. All you got to do is go to chatsports.com/TideBet. Use the promo code TIDE125, and you too can get the best deposit bonus on the internet, 125%. Who's doing that? I can tell you, it's BetUS. Go get yours over at chatsports.com/TideBet. Here are 5 storylines that I am watching against the Golden Eagles of Southern Miss, and first and foremost, it all comes down to this offensive line. I want to see if they improve. They struggled against Florida with some penalties. They got going a little bit, but then reverted back and had a couple penalties late. I want to see if Evan Neal and crew can really get this offensive line headed in the right direction. There's a lot of positives, and maybe Bryce Young is holding the football a little too long on some of these. But overall, when you look at what Alabama has done on the offensive line so far this season in 2 games against ranked opponents in who was number 14 in the country when Alabama faced them, and then barely beat App State in week 2. And then obviously you beat the Gators in week 3, and you had that Mercer game right in the middle. The O-line needs to improve. Simple and plain. The improvement is still needed on the offensive line, and that starts with Evan Neal in terms of his leadership, him proving that he is that first-round caliber offensive lineman for the Crimson Tide. He's somebody that needs to rile up the troops, get it together, because right now it's all right if the offensive line struggles and you have some of those kinks in the armor per se. But once you get down to it in the nitty-gritty, and the SEC, when you have to face the Texas A&Ms, when you have to face the Georgias, hopefully in Atlanta for that SEC championship, that offensive line, if it's struggling, it could be a major, major factor. Now, the one guy to watch is, well, Frank Gore Jr. and the veteran offense of the Southern Miss Golden Eagles, as we know this name if you're an NFL fan, and you probably should know it regardless anyway. Frank Gore Jr. will be coming into Tuscaloosa, and he's the name to watch on this veteran-slated Golden Eagles offense. They love to run the football, and Frank Gore Jr. is the guy that leads that backfield for the Golden Eagles. 55 carries, 274 yards, and a TD. Now, they like to pass it a little bit with their quarterback, who's kind of a hybrid type guy, but when it comes down to it, the Golden Eagles in Southern Miss has a run-first attack. And why is that a big deal? Well, Alabama struggled against the run against Florida, and by no means am I saying that Southern Miss is Florida on the rushing attack, but you want to see that improvement from your D-line moving forward in terms of plugging up those run gaps and really getting the A, B, and C gaps held down properly, because DJ Dale, you need Mathis to step up a little bit more as well. That D-line has to get better. This will be a good test in terms of seeing if your run defense has gotten better from the Florida to this non-con game against the Golden Eagles. And moving forward, something that you'll need against a team like Texas A&M and Georgia as well down in Atlanta. Found this storyline pretty cool. 30 points in 30 consecutive games. And what I mean by that is Alabama has scored at least 30 points in 30 consecutive games if they get 30 against Southern Miss, which I think everybody agrees will happen. Bryce Young, as I mentioned earlier, will get the start, but at the same time, I don't expect him to play maybe a little over a half of football. I'd be surprised if he's playing in the third quarter. Get some of those young guys a lot of run, but let's be honest about it. With a 45-point favorite in Alabama playing the Golden Eagles, this 30 and 30 consecutive games is going to happen. There's no doubt about it. I think Alabama runs away with this one. I'll get to my prediction here in a minute. But this game should be a clear path to a 30-point, at least just having 30 points. I think it's going to be a 30-plus more win. So there's that for Alabama. I do think that's a cool storyline when it comes down to it, though, that you've scored 30 points if you score 30 in this one in 30 straight games, 30 for 30, but 30 and 30 right now for Alabama. As I mentioned previously when we were talking about Frank Gore Jr., there has to be adjustments against the run. Simple and plain, when you allow a Florida team to rush for almost 300 yards in a game in the SEC, if you do that on a constant basis, you will not have a chance to win, no matter if you are Alabama, because there will be one game where there will be a blip on the radar and you lose it. And Alabama can't afford to lose right now. There might be a little wiggle room down the line, but when it comes down to it, there's not a lot of room for error right now with Alabama because of those struggles in the trenches, and that all comes down to adjusting against the run and the guys on the defensive line. A couple of guys that I like but need to step up. The most important one, DJ Dale. I don't know if he deserves to get more snaps. In fact, I do know. Take him off the field a little bit more because he struggled mightily in a lot of aspects of stopping the run. He had 3 tackles last week against number 11 Florida. And he had 1 stuff as well. But overall, he struggled a lot and just has gotten blown off of the line of scrimmage to a point where Florida was just literally going right at Dale and creating huge holes for their running back. So if DJ Dale can step up alongside of Mathis, I think the defensive line will be in a good spot. But you need that to happen right now against Southern Miss, against an inferior opponent in terms of just the talent level. And if the Bama front does improve, I think there's a lot of positives there, but it has to improve this week because you do not want this to be a question mark going into your full SEC slate starting next week. Last storyline against the Golden Eagles of Southern Miss, you're going to get to see the future of Alabama football in terms of a lot of guys are going to be rotated in terms of depth pieces. Obviously, 5-star recruits, 4-star recruits all over the field for Alabama, but some have just not had time to develop. This will be a time where they will get to play in front of the faithful of the Crimson Tide. And the guy that I'm most wanting to see, well, that's Jalen Milroe. I think he is an absolute star at the quarterback position for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, is he raw? Absolutely. He needs to develop his passing game a little bit more. But when it comes down to it, he might be the fastest guy, maybe outside of JoJo, on this entire Alabama roster. And I just love the RPO type sets that they put him in and really just allow him to succeed. Now, these stats aren't eye-popping by any stretch of the imagination. It was in garbage time against Mercer. But even in the limited time that you did see Milroe, you could tell that the speed and athleticism were there. He is absolutely electrifying with the ball in his hands. I can't wait to see just a little bit more of him. And hopefully we'll get to see even more young stars. I want to see some of these guys that maybe won't have an immediate impact in the 4 or 5 star ranks for Alabama starting this year, but maybe next year when some of these guys leave for the NFL and are drafted in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd rounds. Should be a lot of fun watching these guys against the Southern Miss team that has a lot of strengths on the defensive side of the football, needs to improve on some of them. But I want to see some of these young guys go out there and just impress early and often in terms of the garbage time that they will get against Southern Miss on Saturday. But you tell me, which storyline are you watching for on Saturday? Again, I can't wait to see Milroe. I hope he gets in the game. I just love watching those RPO favorite quarterbacks, the Lamar Jacksons of the world, is the Ryan Tannehill who loves RPOs as well. Obviously, Milroe, a far more athletic than Ryan Tannehill. Jalen Hurts comes to mind as well, those type guys. But you let me know down in the comments, which storyline are you watching for on Saturday as Alabama will take on the Golden Eagles of Southern Miss, who will invade Tuscaloosa with a 1-2 record, trying to upset the number 1 team in the country. 45-point dogs right now are the Golden Eagles. Alabama heavily favored in this one. But who you got? Let me know one more time down in the comments below. Do you have Southern Miss? If you do, which if I see a USM down in the comments, I will question a lot about this person. Or type Bama down in the comments if you have the number 1 team in the country winning this one in Tuscaloosa. You know where I'm going with this. I've got Alabama winning 55-10. Listen, I know what I did. I went right on the 45. I know. I'm good at math. Kind of. A little bit. But that's telling you right now, I would probably steer clear of this game in terms of betting. But you know where to go bet? Go over to BetUS and get your 125% deposit bonus with the promo code TIDE125. It's a close one. If it goes down to maybe 40, I'm taking Alabama all the way. But 45, it seems like some good stuff by Vegas over there on chatsports.com/TideBet and BetUS. Use that promo code TIDE125 to bet on your Crimson Tide all season long.